will you help me drive back to Texas? I'm like, no, I bought a plane ticket. I'm flying back. It's like 17 hours or something. I'm like, no. To get to share a locker room with him at his first NFL, I mean, that was badass. I'm like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, I'm getting to hang out with JB Mooney. And I'm pretty sure I drove right past another rodeo that was on the day before.
Welcome, Mr. Kai John Hamilton, to the Rodeo Time Podcast. What an amazing story we're about to get into. My man here, sitting number 2 in the world, all the way from across the world. He's an Australian, and an amazing story. Before we get into that, I want to tell you about rodeotime.com and the new cart feature on that website. Whenever you add certain amounts of money into that cart, a reward system is going to pop up, a little category of free items that you can choose from. Spend $50, $100, there's going to be a reward feature. You can get a free cap here and there. You can get a free hoodie here and there. So go to rodeotime.com right now, because Christmas is fastly approaching and we are shipping daily. So you make an order, probably going to ship within 24 hours. And just communicate with us. Something doesn't get there in time, we'll make it right. Our customer service, Ty, is constantly answering emails. We're going to do our best to get it there quicker than Santa. Check out rodeotime.com for those deals you can feels. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Rock and Roll Denim. We love that reflex. It's the only way to ride bulls and punch fools. American hat, suck that cowboy hat down, old son, and make sure it's an American, because that's what I am. Even if you're an Australian, we're an American. Can-Am side by side. We love those feed buggies, BRP, Mountain Op supplements. We'd be nowhere without Ignite. I'd be asleep right now if I hadn't drank an Ignite this morning. Last but not least, Total Feeds for powering the ranch, powering the animals that we've got here on Radiator Ranch. Corey Anderson, Dr. Harry Anderson, they're like family to me. We'd like to thank those sponsors, and now let's hear Kai John's story. He had to clean up like some old calcium, like some buildup from it coming out so often.
Yeah.
And then he grafted the bone where my bicep, so wherever my bicep connects to this bone, he had to move that. Essentially, I didn't have a socket anymore because the bone had broken out. So he had to rebuild the socket. So he had to graft a piece of bone down to the socket. And it happened, it's a piece of bone that your bicep's connected to. And so he put in 2 screws and 2 anchors there.
Yeah. It
sounded weird, but so essentially like it's got to grow back right, and like it'll affect kind of my bicep a little bit. Now, I think normally it comes like up this way, but now mine will come over this way a little.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Huh.
It'll be a little different, but have you ever had anything worked on?
I had my hip scoped and ACL and MCL, but that's about it.
Well, you recently had...
Oh, I did, I guess, yeah, I had a plate put in my eye socket.
Yeah, what happened there?
When I went to get off a bull in Albuquerque, the whistle blew and I grabbed my tail and he jerked me down right at the end and barely got me with his horn on this right side, and like it split me open, and I'm like, oh, just bleeding, and
yeah,
they stitched me up, and I mean my face swelled up, but I didn't think anything of it, and I went to the ER room in Beaver, Utah the next day, because we drove back, me and Stetson, and they said, yeah, you got like the bottom of your eye socket's broken, but nothing else is. It should just heal by itself. Well, that was just a CT scan. Well, I sent that to Tandy, and he's like, you got your muscle and your nerve in between that bone. It's never going to knit back together. So, like, you got to have it fixed. So then they went in and plated it.
Thank God for Tandy, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
Like he gave you that second opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he's so smart.
Yeah.
He's so smart. Like, so I called his office and I was like, because it had come out like 5 times, and he and I had talked about it the second and third time it came out, my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I called his office. I talked to, I think her name's Jackie, that works in the front there. Val's out for now. And anyway, Jackie was like, yeah, we'll schedule for an MRI. And then he called me on his cell phone, and he was like, hey, so are you sure you want to have it operated on? And I was like, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's come out 5 times. And he was like, yeah, it's getting ready to start coming out all the time, is what he said. And he's like, well, let's just schedule surgery and just come in the day before and have an MRI. And I was like, because it's like the day before? And he was like, yeah. And then I'll just decide what I'm going to do. And then, and I talked to a couple of people, they were like, he doesn't know what he's going to do yet? And he was like, no, he's just going to figure it out the day before. And they were like, really? And I was like, I don't think you understand Tandy. And so went in and got the MRI. And even then he was like, so it kind of shows us some things. This is what I think could happen. It's a possibility of 2 or 3 things, but I'll decide when I open you up. So I didn't know what he was going to do till after he had done it. So I woke up in surgery and he was like, yeah, so we ended up grafting a bone when I looked in there. And it's a long story, but the way he explained it to me in layman terms, it made more sense. But it just like revealed to me like just how brilliant of a man he is and how many shoulders he's done, you know?
Yeah.
Do you know Will Reynolds?
Yes. Yeah.
Another Australian.
Yeah.
He was the one. He was like, he had both his shoulders done in Australia by supposedly one of the best over there, but they were both still coming out.
Damn.
And he said Tandy fixed them both, and they've been great ever since.
That's wild.
Not to throw shade on an Australian doctor. He's probably like a normal guy that does really well, but Tandy's just that good.
Good, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so backing up to your story in Albuquerque, weren't you like 90?
Yeah, I was 91. Good ride, terrible get off. I don't know why, but people had told me before, like, when you're behind, don't grab your tail. Like, it's a bad idea to grab your tail and try and get off when you're behind. And I was a little behind. Well, I learnt the hard way. I reached for my tail, and right as I did that, he jerked me down.
Was he going into your hand?
Yeah.
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 Who was fighting bulls?
Cody Emerson, and I can't remember who the other guy was, but I know Cody. Cody wasn't sure what happened. He thought I got stunned a little bit, or like I just hit the ground hard. He didn't even see the bull's horn hit me, and he's kind of just grabbed me and threw me out of the way. And the bull wasn't that mean, but I landed right by the out gate, and that bull was just going to get out, and I was kind of slow getting up, and he grabbed me and just threw me out of the way. And I felt my face, and I'm like, oh, it's bleeding. And yeah, so then they had to go back there and stitch it up.
How long did you have to sit out?
The next day they did that CT scan in Beaver, and they just told me it would heal. So I didn't have anything until pretty much 2 weeks later, the Governor's Cup in Sioux Falls. So I just waited until then before I went anywhere and let the swelling and stuff go down.
Oh, so you were getting on pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about this before, and so we're all familiar with, your recent, story. Kai John Hamilton, right now you're sitting second in the world. Is this your 4th NFR appearance?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so 4 NFRs. You're riding great, and we want to get to this year right now, but we also are curious, like backing up to just the early days. What's it like coming up as a bull rider in Australia and making your way over here? And you can back up the story as early as you want to start it, but
yeah,
I've always wondered that, and so I feel like a lot of people might be curious.
Yeah. No, it's like compared to being over here, I would have much rather start out over here than at home. But I mean, you play the cards you dealt. Over there, there's not as many rodeos. Like we can go to one rodeo a weekend, and like over there, the rodeos are just one perf. Like they don't run for 3-4 days more. There's like one big rodeo, Mount Isa, and it runs for, I think, a week. But other than that, everything's just one perf, one performance, that's it. And sometimes on the long weekends, like where you have 3-day weekend, there might be 3 you can go to that weekend, or 2. but most of the time it's just one, and then other than that, it might be one every second weekend. Like there's just not as many, and the traveling over there is what kills us. Like it's a lot more expensive to travel, and because there's not as many rodeos, they're a lot further apart. So trying to rodeo, you can't make a living over there doing it. You have to have a day job and stuff like that. But other than that, like getting on practice bulls, like I got on a lot of practice bulls because I couldn't go to as many rodeos over there. So I was constantly practicing, and then I'd go to one rodeo for the weekend, you know. But and the other thing over there too is not many guys have practice bulls. Like I was kind of lucky. I had two good friends. One lived about half an hour from me, and the other one was an hour. And they were a lot older than me, so I couldn't even really start getting on their practice bulls until I was like 14, 15, because they were bigger bulls and stuff. And my dad knew I wasn't ready for him, so he wouldn't let me. So I'd have to hound them to buck bulls for me.
Yeah.
And then, like, even the contractors over there, like, they got day jobs and stuff like that too. So for them to buck bulls for you, it was usually on weekends when they weren't working and stuff. So it was kind of a lot harder to get started and kind of get your feet under you over there. But my dad, he used to ride, and then Troy Dunn, he only lived like 45 minutes away from me. So I had a pretty good support crew growing up over there to teach me the fundamentals and be around the right people to get started. So I think that was a big help, and probably without that it wouldn't have gone as far as it did. And there was another guy, Brian Duggan. There was a bull riding arena out the back of a pub over there, and he'd have practices Wednesday and Friday nights, and then he had a series, and it was once a month, and there was two different series, but it was pretty much the same bulls and stuff. And I think one was just like a junior and novice, and the other series was like junior, novice, and open. So I mean, I went to them every month, and every time it was like 3.5 hours away from me. So when I started working, I'd drive 3.5 hours to go down to the practice on the Friday nights, practice, and then do the rodeo that he had that Saturday night. So but that guy had great stock, and I remember we were riding steers, and we were riding all the steers he had, and he started putting his young bulls in the steer riding for us to get better on, because we were riding all his steers, but we weren't quite ready for his junior bulls yet because they were a little bigger and stuff like that. So he'd put his real young, like 2-year-old bulls in the steer ride for us so that we could get on them and get better even there. So
yeah,
he really helped us progress a lot. So.
How old were you when you first got on?
I first got on when I was 11, and I just entered the calf riding, and I think I hadn't ever been on one, and I won third or something like that. So
dang,
yeah. But
so you were able to start pretty young. How old are you now?
23.
23.
Yeah.
Dang. So when did you come over?
The first time I was 15, and I made the junior high school finals over here. I think they were in Des Moines, Iowa. And Mom and Dad brought me over for 2 weeks to go to that. And, I mean, that didn't go worth a shit. I was expecting to come over here and do good things, and I think I rode one out of the 3 bulls, and it didn't go very well at all. But then I come over again when I was 17, and I went to some youth bull riding finals in Texas here, and I spent a month over here and went to some amateur rodeos and stuff like that, and it went a lot better.
Yeah, I've been to the junior high and high school finals a couple of times. Like, we'd set up a booth and hang out, and with the bull riders, and there was always 3, 4, 5 Australian kids there.
Yeah.
It was always neat to watch them interact, and there'd be some from Mexico and Brazil, but maybe not Brazil, but do you have, I'm sure it's there, but like essentially like you would be classified as like an immigrant. And I feel like a lot of immigrants come into this country super hungry.
Yeah.
And I doubt that rodeo cowboys are any different. Like, do you feel like you have maybe an added hunger that drives your success, your motivation to be successful?
Yeah, I think so. Like, coming from another country, I mean, just getting to be comfortable in the way the other country is and how things work, I mean, that's something in itself to try and get used to, along with, I mean, the bulls over here are a little different style of bull. Well, we have the same kind of bulls at home, but there's more of, I say, there's more different kinds of bulls over here, and I mean, that's something I had to get used to too. But yeah, I mean, like, I looked up to Troy Dunn and I seen what he was able to do over here. So I mean, I was hungry coming over here, wanting to do the same thing and prove a point that, like, Australians can do it too. Like, it's like, obviously America and Brazil are probably the top in bull riding, and so there's not many Australians that do come over here and succeed. So I mean, that was an added hunger that I wanted to come over here and do good and for as long as I could and kind of make a name for myself. So
I'm sure there was also some pressure, like if you were to maybe have a slump of 2, 3, 4 bulls that you buck off of, you just go to thinking like, well, dang, I don't want to go back. Or I mean, like, I don't want to go back because I'm bucking off,
Yeah, when I first come over here, I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of money, and I was lucky I was going to college, so I mean, that was kind of paying some of the way. But yeah, for sure, going from having a 9-to-5 job at home, knowing where you're getting consistent money, and then going to the rodeos and bull ridings on the weekend, like, the pressure of money wasn't really there. But then coming over here, and the only way I'm making money is if I rodeo and stay on. I mean, that was something too that took a little while, because in the same token, when I first got here, I was still trying to learn and get better, and I wasn't as good then. So yeah, wanting to stay on to make sure you got enough money, that was another added pressure.
And going to college rodeos, I think I know this about you, but even if I didn't, it seems like every Australian goes to Snyder. That's where you went, isn't it?
I did 1 year at Odessa, and then I went to Sol Ross in Alpine.
Okay.
Yeah, I had heard about Snyder, but I never really looked into it. And then I had some friends that had gone to Odessa at the time and knew CJ Aragon that was the coach there at the time.
Right.
So I thought the only two schools were Odessa and Snyder. I didn't know about all these other schools.
And they just battled it out. Every college rodeo, those two just battled it out.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it seems like there's always Australians there in Snyder. But looking back, like, it seems like over the years, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like most of the Australians that have come through have been bronc riders. Like, it seems like a lot of bronc riders.
Yeah, it seems like over the last few years, I didn't know there was that many bronc riders in Australia. And I didn't know that there was that many good ones too. Like, it seems like this past 2 years, there's been a lot of good bronc riders come over.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know there was that many guys. Like,
when I first started rodeoing, I went to a couple of rodeos with Lance Kelly. You know Lance?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Lance he was my first, Australian interaction that I'd ever had. And so hearing a lot of those stories, he seemed like he had lived like a full life in Australia before he came over here. Like, he may have been a younger guy when he came over here, but it seems like maybe lower 30s when he came over. So, like, he had lived like a good amount of his life there in Australia and then come over. But and then I think everybody knows Sam Spreadborough, Travis Edwards.
Yeah,
got to be around him a lot. He was I think ran around the Stace Smith crew quite a bit. How old is Troy Dunn?
I think he's like 56, maybe 55, somewhere in there.
So was he one of the ones that paved the way?
Yeah, I'd say for the bull riders, there was like A bronc. Oh, Daryl Kong. I mean, like he was one of the first big bronc riders from Australia. But I'd say for the bull riders, definitely Troy, because I mean, around that time too, things were starting to be on TV and stuff like that. So a lot of people got to see his success. But yeah, Troy Dunn and Greg Potter, I'd say are probably like the two biggest guys from Australia.
Yeah. It seems like, yeah, maybe also the internet has helped amplify it, but salsa.
Yeah.
There's another one, also redheaded. Is it maybe Tom Knight?
Oh yeah, yep, Tom Knight.
Yeah. And everybody, all of you guys seem so happy to be here. Everybody seems so like just grateful for life.
Yeah. It's a whole different world over here. Like I was saying earlier, like over there you get to go to one rodeo a weekend. Like over here you can go to one just about every day if you want. And I mean that's why I came over here, so I could ride bulls. And I mean I love it. You get to do what you love for a living. And
so what made you pick Texas?
Just because I had heard it's the place to be for bucking bulls, like Texas and Oklahoma. So, I mean, that was kind of the place I wanted to go. I had heard that if you want to ride bulls, that's a good place to be. So that's kind of why I picked Texas. And I had a couple of contacts and stuff over here around Texas. So,
I'm getting a little warm, and it's a process for me to take a hoodie off right now. So tell me about what what year did you come over here, you said?
The end of 2018.
So you've been here almost right at 5 years.
Yeah.
Man, so you made your NFR the second year you were here.
Yeah.
What was it like that first year you were here and then making your first NFR? What was it like rodeoing then?
So my first year, I didn't know where anything was.
Like rodeo-wise?
Yeah, I think I entered like an Extreme Bulls in Laramie, Wyoming, and I'm pretty sure I drove right past another rodeo that was on the day before.
You're talking about like geography-wise. You just didn't know like town to town.
Every time I looked at the business journal, I'd have to like look at my maps to see where this town was. Like I had no idea. Yeah. And so I mean it was a little rough that first year on my permit. I'm like the other thing too, I didn't know how good I was, so I kind of just entered the smaller rodeos hoping that the better guys weren't there and I could win some money. And so it was a little scatterbrains there, and I was also amateur rodeoing a little bit too, and I knew I wanted to do good things and like make the NFR and stuff, but I didn't really know how to go about it. And at the time I was staying at Cody Lambert's, and the end of 2019 I was going up to the stockyards every Friday and Saturday night because there was nothing else on, and I was kind of using that as my practice and winning a little money and stuff. And I think Cody come down to the house, the bunkhouse one morning, and he was like, "You been watching the NFR on TV?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's where you should be at next year." And like at this point, I'm still wide-eyed and like looking at Cody Lambert like he's a god.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it shocked me. I'm like, geez, Cody Lambert just told me I should be going to the NFR next year. Like, and that kind of lit a fire under me and made me kind of realize that I did have potential to go and do that. And it gave me a goal to strive towards and something to work towards. So 2020 started, and I still didn't know where places were, but I just knew I had to go to the rodeos where all the most money was added. So that's all I did was enter the rodeos with the most money added, and kind of just figured out where they were and whether I had to fly there or I could drive there. I just kind of figured it out. And yeah.
So you were in Texas at the start. Man, the stockyards. Did you go to Billy Bob's any?
I never went to Billy Bob's. I had heard it could be sketchy, so I never went to Billy Bob's. I just went to the stockyard.
That's what you drew the line somewhere in that alley where they trot across to the bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They always try to wrap up. There's like a time that the stockyards has to be done. Like when they're running that perf, they've got to be done by a certain time because they're going to start Billy Bob's bull riding at a certain time. And, getting a lot of interns here, and I'll always, we'll be talking about rodeoing. And it's like, because I feel like Texas, especially when you're starting out, is just the perfect place because they've got every level, every weekend. You can go to something every weekend of the year in Texas.
Yeah.
Thankfully for the stockyards and then a winter series here and there.
Yeah.
And anyhow, we're having those conversations, and November comes around. It's like, what are we going to go to? It's like, well, you could go to the stockyards, and they have a really good reputation for the bull riding, and they don't get enough horse riders. Sometimes, you're not sure what kind of bronc you might draw in the horse riding, but it is somewhere to go.
Yeah.
And I can just picture you, having said all that, like I can picture you being really hungry, and like this time of year, it's November, and like nothing's going to phase you or keep you from entering something if it means a chance to win money or get better.
Yeah.
Like, what was your mentality in terms of like those kind of bull ridings, maybe something that not everybody wanted to go to, but then also like the practice pen kind of bulls? Like, do you feel like you had a maybe a competitive edge against American bull riders who were taking it for granted?
Yeah, I'd almost say something along that lines. Like that was the deal. I wanted to come here and get better and make it to where I could make a living doing it. So any chance I was getting to practice or go to something an hour down the road to where I could ride for money, I was going to it, because I was still trying to figure out how to ride, and I needed money at the time. So any chance I got to go and ride for money, I was going to it, and it didn't really matter how much was added or what bulls they were. I just knew I had to get better at riding, and I knew I had to be making money. So.
It's just crazy to think about, because like having grown up in Texas and been around a lot of practice pens, a lot of rodeos, amateur, professional in Texas, like I get to see a variety of rough stock riders and the way they approach the sport.
Yeah.
But something about like when you guys come over, like that's a long plane ride. It's a very expensive ticket. You don't get to make that often. And something about coming over here, like you've burned the boats, and you now like, it's like either go forward or go home.
Yeah.
And so like, what do I need to get better? Who do I need to put myself around? Which is what I want to get to next with you. And it just seems like you've got a different, the only word for it would be perspective, because I feel like there's a lot of guys with maybe 2 or 3 practice pens within arm's reach where maybe they don't get on as many bulls as they need to. They just feel like it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
But if you're coming from, you go to one rodeo this month and it's 6-hour drive across Australia, you're going to have a different mindset.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you stoke the fire the right way, that could give you a different motivation.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there's Australians over here that maybe have not been successful. But of those 10 or 12 that I mentioned, I feel like they've all got that drive.
Yeah. I know for me, I remember when I first got out of school at home, I was 15. And over there, when you turn 15, it's the government, like you either got to be earning or learning. You can go to stay in school, or you can go get a job. Well, I wanted to save my money to come over here, so I went and got a job working at a motor trimmer and upholsterers. And I remember the first day I walked into work, my boss's wife said to me, she goes, "Well, congratulations, this is your first day of work for the rest of your life." And I laughed at myself. I'm like, if you knew what I was planning on doing, you wouldn't be saying that.
That's wild.
And I worked for 2.5 years until I come over here and went to college. And when I come over here, I knew I was never going to work for someone else ever again.
Right. Yeah, so many questions. Yeah, and if you would have told her at that time, odds are she may not have believed you.
Yeah.
But here you are.
Yeah.
I feel like, what is it about Australians that you guys are just all so dirty tough?
I don't know. I think it's just the culture over there. Like, I don't know what it is or what made us that way. Maybe it's because when they discovered Australia, they sent all the convicts over there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I think the way things are over there, the mentality of the people, it's just dirty, tough.
Yeah.
Aussies. I don't know. I couldn't put a finger on what makes it that way.
I didn't know that tidbit, when they discovered Australia, and I went over there for the PBR to Townsville.
Yeah.
To that bull riding over there. And so learned a lot got to hang out with Brinson, the new PBR face of comedy. Great dude. Anyways, me and Brinson, a couple girls, we just rode scooters around Magnetic Island out there close to Townsville. It was a super fun trip, so fun. And just we got to go to Billabong Sanctuary, and it was showing us kind of some of the life, the wildlife around the area. Anyways, fun trip, super insightful. But I learned a lot about Australia. Obviously you guys drive on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
Which I knew that. Well, I didn't realize that means mostly everybody also walks on the other side of the sidewalk. Because I was like walking, because I didn't have a car over there, so we're walking to eat every night, and I'm just like, man, people are giving me this look, and I feel like I fit in, because, I'm not that, I don't stand out that much, I do a little, and then I realize, like, oh, they're having to go around me.
Yeah.
Because, like, I drive, I walk on the right side of the sidewalk, and they're all walking on the left side, so they got to go around me, and they're like, what's this asshole doing?
Yeah.
Coming head on traffic on the sidewalk. And so then, I didn't get the looks, but I was sent over there to film and to kind of capture the trip and promote travel to Australia. And I remember I was in it was in downtown Townsville, and it was real chill. It was almost like I wasn't sure if stuff was open. It was a very calm and peaceful. It was a neat afternoon, and I was just kind of filming, brought like some B-roll of the town, and I was going to throw it in my video. And this cop came over, and he was like, "Hey, be careful with that camera. We don't want to make anybody anxious." And I was like, and it was really that was odd to me. But he was like, he made it sound like it was like maybe it was this inner city thing but there were just a few things, and I feel like out in the country, it's pretty much, without the accent, it'd be like very similar to over here out in the country.
Yeah.
But like being in the middle of the city was like unique, and that was different.
Yeah.
But you probably didn't spend a lot of time in cities over there.
No, I didn't like the cities at all. I'd have to go to Sydney for a week, like 4 times a year when I was working for that place to do it's kind of like college. They call it TAFE, and it was like the theory side of the job and stuff like that. So we'd go there for a week, and I used to hate it because down in Sydney, it's like multicultural down there. It's almost like Spot the Aussie.
Right.
So, I didn't really like it, but it was a week out of the year 4 times, so it wasn't bad. But. So
how far from town was did you live?
I lived like right on the outside of town. Like my dad, he grew up, his father, my grandfather, he ran a lot of like properties and ranches over there. So my dad grew up on properties and stuff, and day working over there a lot, and then Rodeo. And then when he met my mom, and I got an older brother, when he was on the way, there's not a lot of money in day working and stuff
Yeah.
over there. So Dad didn't want to do that, and he wanted to be home and be around the family. So they actually moved to town, and they bought a house on like maybe a quarter of an acre, and they built a house there, and that's where we grew up. It was like from the town of Mackay, there's probably maybe 80,000 people in there. It's decent size. And we lived about 5-10 minutes from the center of town. And so like I didn't grow up riding horses from day dot and all that kind of deal. All my dad's side of the family, they lived in Rockhampton. It's like 3.5 hours south of Mackay. And so when I did start wanting to ride and stuff, I'd go down there on my school holidays and spend time at my auntie's and uncle's houses and ride horses and do all that kind of stuff.
So you, as a small kid, like you were kind of revealed to rodeo, like this was something your dad had done. You saw pictures, maybe some videos.
I think I might have seen one video, maybe.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah.
then you obviously got introduced to Troy Dunn, and so it was like this distant dream that you wanted to bring back. Like, did your brother have the same thing?
No, me and him complete opposites.
Really?
So like, Mum was from town, Dad was from the country, and so like my brother, he's a diesel mechanic and stuff like that. But Dad, he worked for JJ Richards, like a recycling company, driving trucks. So I mean, he was always dressed to go to work for that. So like, my first cowboy as such was my grandfather, my dad's dad. And it didn't matter if we were going to the beach or going into the town to go shopping, he was dressed like a cowboy. And he still day worked and stuff, and he had a place in Rockhampton. So I mean, he was the first real like cowboy I got to see, and I thought he was the coolest thing ever. And then I had the pictures of Dad and stuff when he was riding, and so that's kind of where the interest come from.
What age was that, you think?
I was like 3, 4.
Oh, so early.
Yeah.
Dang. Man, so I mean that's like super similar to the way that someone over here would get introduced to it.
Yeah.
I feel like somewhere along the way, that same person over here, I don't want to throw American bull riders under the bus. Obviously, plenty of them make it, and there's plenty of examples, and across the board, as far as like people that make a living, American bull riders are probably winning that race.
Yep.
Because that's where the rodeos are. But also, like, I guess I just get a lot of, even outside of my intern program, I've always been the guy that people came to when in my circles that, hey, I want to try bull riding, and I want to, a lot of them, maybe it was a bucket list thing, and they wanted to get on one and see what it was like. And then some of them like, hey, I think I want to be a bull rider. And I think the reason I was that guy is because I always had access to a practice pen.
Yeah.
Like in college and in high school, in my high school, I was the only rodeo guy. And then in college, I had, with the rodeo team, our rodeo coach would just send them to me. Anybody that came to him said, I want to be on the rough stock end, he would just, because at A&M, they didn't have like a organized practice. So it was always up to me. So Texas A&M, big school, a lot of kids want a rodeo. And Dr. Al would always say, call this guy.
Yeah.
And so my phone was always ringing. And I say that to say just something about the last 15 years of my life, I'm constantly introducing people to the sport of rodeo, which I enjoy and love. And it's just very few of them follow through with like their original intention.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, you don't know what it's going to be like. So people think they want to ride bulls, and then they get on one. Like, you're just asking for chaos and a storm, and it's dangerous, and you could die, you know, or worse, you could be in a wheelchair. Not worse, but whatever. The point is, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyway, then you get, guy, like, for instance, Donnie comes along, and he's green, never done it, and he does come follow through with it, and you see him now. It's becoming an income stream and on his way to being his main source of income. And I don't know. I watch you guys. I feel like if everyone had a taste of like, if they were to start where you started, like it would just give people a different perspective and a different drive of motivation.
Yeah.
And some people, I think, over here, bull riding wise, take it for granted, and it's right in front of them, and it's just like, maybe I'll try it, maybe a little bit. What's the word? Entitled. Like maybe I'll try. I don't know. I'm not trying to crap on Americans at all. I'm a fan of all the Australians I've met.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from. Like having been around rodeo, like you guys all have such a good attitude. And I wish there were more of us that had it.
Yeah.
Is I guess the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And so speaking of American bull riders, when did you meet Stetson?
So my rookie year in 2020, it was around San Antonio time. He messaged me on Instagram about a bull I'd been on, and that was like before the Cowboy Channel, like the year before the Cowboy Channel wasn't really up and going, so we couldn't look up videos of bulls and stuff. And I sent him a video and stuff, and that was about it. And then in San Antonio, I was just out in the parking lot and getting ready to go somewhere, I think Tucson or something, and he was out there, and he just came over and said hi, introduced himself, and just chatted away, and we were talking about bull riding and stuff, and that was about it. And then I didn't really see him a whole lot until around the summer sometime. I think we were in Yuma, Colorado or something, and I seen him there, and he was getting on, and I was traveling with Colton Fritzlin at the time. So we were there and kind of met up and bullshitted and stuff for a little bit. And then when them Utah rodeos kind of got going on, we were seeing him quite a bit. And I couldn't even tell you, like, the first time that it was like, oh, let's, like, go to these rodeos together. We went, I think one night I can't remember where we were going, but he said, like, you guys come stay at the house, like, can hang out and we'll go to the rodeo tomorrow and whatnot. So me and Colton went there and spent the night there and hung out a little bit. And then I flew up to Salt Lake to go to a rodeo up there. And the following week was the tour finals in Rapid City. And he said, I'll just come stay at the house and then for the week, and then we'll head over there at the end of the week. And I said, okay. So kind of did that. And I mean, we were like friends, but like I still didn't really know him that well, and vice versa. And then when we found out the NFL was going to be in Texas, he was wanting to come to Texas really bad. And we were in Brawley, California, and I flew out there and he drove with his brothers, and they had an extra truck, so he was just planning on going back to Texas after Brawley. And he's like, will you help me drive back to Texas? I'm like, no, I bought a plane ticket. I'm flying back. It's like 17 hours or something. I'm like, no. He said, well, if I win the bull riding and you don't, you have to drive back with me. And if you win the bull riding and I don't, you can fly back. I'm like, okay, deal. Well, I won the bull riding. And then I started feeling bad for him, so I said I'd help him drive back to Texas.
That's funny.
So then, yeah, he spent 2 weeks there. I was still staying at Cody Lambert's, and he come for them 2 weeks leading up to the NFR, and we hung out there and roped and got on some practice bulls, and that was pretty much where we hit it off.
So fall of 19, you're watching the NFR. Cody Lambert, lots of fire under you, and lets you know. I mean, that had to have been something coming from him, like, hey, this is where you belong.
Yeah.
And so then did you, prior to somewhere between the NFR 19 when Cody tells you that and 2020 at San Antonio in February, did you make a decision? I'm going to try to go this year?
Yeah, literally from the start of January that year, I said, screw it, I'm going to enter all the big rodeos with the most money added, and I'm just going to go for it. And wound up end of September, start of October, and it's like, holy shit, I'm sitting second in the world.
Yeah.
Going into my first NFR.
So you met Stetson, and I'm just kind of envisioning, because like winners don't just hang around anybody, and I mean, even they may not even be the kind of people that are going to have the motivational tweets of, like Stetson may not be the kind of guy that's going to put on like a motivational class about like who you need to surround yourself with, but he's one of the absolute best in the world. He's a future Hall of Famer. He could go down as the GOAT in whatever event he wants. And then you get over here. Like I think that there was a thought process behind him deciding to bring you into his life. And I feel like you're probably a couple of things. Number one, like a likable guy. You're enjoyable to be around, and you're not like the way we talk about culture in this company, you're not a cancer to the culture. Like you have a good attitude. And then number two, I bet your drive to be successful. And then you are obviously kind of riding bulls at the same level as him. That's speculation on my part. Those are the three things I think played a role. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And like just by being around him more too, like he's the kind of winner that it doesn't matter who you are. He's going to do whatever he can to help you, to make you win and make you better. And I think that was kind of like his personality. He's outgoing, like nice guy. Like he'll say hi to anyone, doesn't matter who it is. I think that's what kind of started it. And then we start hanging out together and talking about bull riding more. And if I had a question or anything about bull riding or any way that he could help me, he was going to do it. Like he's that kind of winner to where he doesn't see anyone as a threat. He just wants to see other guys do well as himself.
Yeah. So that's 2020. So by the end of 2020, you guys are kind of officially like going to travel together.
Yeah, pretty well. I think the start of 2021, I think I told him, I said, if I'm going to rodeo again this year, because at the time I was kind of thinking about going to some PBRs and stuff. I said, if I'm going to rodeo again, I want to go with you. And he was like, he didn't blink an eye at it. He's like, come on, we'll do it. So,
who was he outside of his brothers? Was he really going with anybody else at the time?
No,
Not
just
really.
Just himself. Yeah.
Was he cross event buddying with his brothers?
I think for 2020 he was going with Ryder.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So cross event buddying, you can, if you're entered in two events, so Stetson would have been bronc riding and bull riding. In one of those two, you can buddy with one other person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a unique rule. Anyway, we're not going to get into the weeds on rules, but so now he cross event buddies with you.
Yep.
Did him getting on broncs, how did that play a role in y'all's entering?
The last few years, like you said, not getting into the ins and outs of rules. The last few years, it's kind of been a shamble. Like they'll split him up sometimes. Like we'll have to be in Reno for 2 days because he's got to get on a bull and bronc. But it doesn't bother me at all. Like I know I'm getting on the same amount of bulls as him, and I'm going to the same places as him. So there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to win as much as he does. So I mean, there's like sometimes there'll be guys going to extreme bulls that we won't get to go to and stuff like that. But yeah, it doesn't bother me. I know if I'm going the same places as him, I can win just as much as him. So
yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
If he's able to be number one in the world in the bull riding while he's also getting on broncs, like why shouldn't you be able to be competitive going to those? That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he was like winning the bronc riding, but then number 23 in the world in the bull riding, and you were trying to travel with him, that might be a different
Yeah.
perspective, but he's literally number one in the bull riding. So like it's not bothering him that he's entered into. So why should
Yeah.
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So then you take off in 2021, and that's the year JB decides to go to rodeos instead of PBRs.
Yeah.
When did y'all cross paths with JB?
I want to say, well, yeah. So I can't remember exactly that year. I think we had met up, been out to his place. Me and Stetson went out there one time. Might have been like in the winter or something of 21, and kind of hung out there for a little bit, not much. And then come the summer of 2021, we were seeing him a lot then, and kind of getting to know one another and stuff like that. And then he made the NFR, and then we were seeing each other quite a bit. So
I remember FaceTiming him or talking to him a few times that summer, and him bringing up y'all's names and how well, like Jagger really liked y'all.
Yeah.
And, which made Samantha's life easier, when Jagger's able to have some buddies on the road. And it sounded like he kind of saw, going, I guess maybe going back to that same mentality that I was talking about with Stetson and how he might approach picking a traveling partner, but like it sounded like he saw a glimpse of himself at a younger age in you guys.
Yeah, I think so in a way. It, like he's said it before too, like he was having fun when he was rodeoing, and I mean like me and Stetson are always there goofing around, and like the only time we really get serious is when we climb in the buck and shoot. The rest of the time we're just having fun and doing what any other 23-year-olds, 22-year-olds would be doing, like enjoying life. And I think he's seen that and kind of reminded of his younger self. So I think it might have took a liking to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then y'all get back with that, back from 2021, JB's going, what was that like going into that NFR? You're now at your second NFR, traveling with Stetson, watching him do his thing, but then also being at JB's first NFR.
It was awesome. Like I grew up watching that guy and idolized the way he went about it, his career and the way he rode bulls. And I never thought I'd get to share a locker room with him, like, because I didn't think he'd ever come rodeo.
Right.
And then I thought maybe by the time I got into the PBR, he'd be gone.
Yeah.
So, like, to get to share a locker room with him at his first NFR, I mean, that was badass. I'm like,
yeah,
hell yeah, I'm getting to hang out with JB Mooney. And then, I mean, it happened for the last several years, but yeah, that was in itself was one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that just kind of hit me as we were talking about it, that like, that, yeah, I mean, it was 2021 and man, getting to see him at rodeos, I'm sure was cool enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then he won the very first round. I think he's like 88 points or something like that. Won that first round. Split it with somebody maybe? I can't remember.
I split it with that.
Oh, you did?
That's
cool.
That was the other crazy thing. I'm like, because I was out before him and I was winning it at the time, and then he tied me.
And you were so jacked.
And I was like, that was my first round win at the NFR.
Yeah.
And that was his, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how many kids when they're 14 have watched JB Mooney and idolized him so much, and then here I am, winning around with him at his first NFR.
I completely forgot about that.
It's crazy how things happen.
That is so neat. That's a wild story. And then did Stetson end up winning the bull riding that year? I can't remember that part.
I think Sage won it that year.
Did Sage win it that year?
Yeah.
So looking at like, I feel like this is just my observation, but like your riding style is maybe even a little closer to JB's than it is Stetson.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah,
you feel that way?
Yeah, he's a little shorter and compact, but then like I watch him and he rides a lot like JB too. Like he'll get strung out on one and make them Hail Mary moves and flash it up and make it look good too. I think he's just a shorter, compact guy.
Gotcha.
Whereas JB's a little longer limbed and stuff like myself. But yeah, he talks about it, watching guys that have a similar body style and similar riding style to you. And I mean, that I always watched him ride. That's him and Troy Dunn. They were the only two guys I ever really watched ride bulls.
So you did watch JB ride a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Stetson was here, I think it was in the spring, and giving some of the bull riders, young guys here, some pointers, and ended up getting on a couple bulls. And then I'm sure, you saw and were aware, got on a dang bareback horse. Like, had he ever even talked about that? That was so wild.
After he talked about it, he thought about cracking out.
Did he think about it?
Yeah.
And then since, I'm sure he's ruled it out.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, he was just walking by, and Kevin at the time was getting on bareback horses, and it's an old NFR horse. His name's Hang 'em High. We call him Baptist. And when you put a loose flank on him, for a bareback rider, he's just real nice. He'll circle to the left and just kind of up and down. And he's like 20 some odd years old. He might be 30. But anyways, yeah, I don't know if he'd even seen the trip yet that horse was going to have, because I ended up just bringing him back around, and Stetson got on him for a second trip. But no vest, just threw on a glove. And I don't know if the vest maybe was going to, in his mind, it was going to have him thinking he was taking it too serious or something. But golly, it was so funny. And Rusty was just shaking his head the whole time. It's so wild to me, the amount of NFRs in the bronc riding that have come out of that family. Like, is it something about his personality that made him add bull riding?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, he just wants to be a little different?
Yeah. His personality, like, his brothers are a lot quieter and soft-spoken, and you kind of don't realize they're there. But Stetson, he's there. Like, he's life of the party. Like, he's there wherever he's at. I think that's probably got a bit to do with it.
What's your observation as far as what makes them guys be so successful?
I really think it's their upbringing. Like Cody, I think the way he's brought them boys up and their mentality, they've had it from day one. They've been raised the right way, and they've had that winning mentality instilled in them from day one. Mm-hmm. They don't know losing. Mm-hmm. And all they want to do is win, and that's all they care about. That's all they talk about. And I think that's what sets them apart, and that, like, every single one of them's tough.
Yeah.
And yeah, that mentality about life and riding in general is like, you don't see a family very often that every single one of the people in that family are that way. Like, it's kind of weird like that. Every single person in their family has a wanna win desire mentality.
Yeah.
And then I mean, you can have friends and stuff like that, but when your own family is that way, I mean, that's pretty cool, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, it's every day.
Yeah.
You're getting fed that type of
Yep.
motivation. Yeah, because Statler, so speaking of people that got on there first that day, Statler got on a bull also, now that I'm thinking back. It's a very exciting Rodeo Time episode. If y'all haven't watched it, please go check out Stetson getting on his first bareback horse. Has Statler thought about getting on any more bulls?
I don't know if he has since then. I know he was wanting to ride bulls like a little bit before then, but he never did. But maybe that cured him. I don't know.
Yeah, because that bull was a lot like that horse in that like very rider friendly trip. Just puts on a turn signal and turns back real slow up and down. And Statler rode the snot out of him. So going into your fourth NFR, what's been different? Well, let's talk about the third NFR last year. So the second one is when you went with JB and Stetson, had a great NFR. What about that third year? How'd that go? 2022.
Well, throughout the year it wasn't as good as it should have been. I hadn't been home for 4 years, and I was the last 21 and 22 got banged up quite a bit, and it was weird. For the first time ever, I was starting to get homesick. Like, the whole time I had been here before then, I never wanted to go home, didn't care about going home. I just wanted to be over here and riding bulls, and I think I was getting banged up and kind of getting a little sour on things and stuff, and I was starting to want to go home and see all the family and stuff like that. So I ended up doing that in October and November last year. I went home, spent 2 months back home, and spent time around family and rode a bunch of horses and stuff with my uncle, and then when I got back over to the NFR, I was refreshed. It felt like I had weight lifted off my shoulders. Like I wanted to be here again, and the NFR went decent and stuff. So it was kind of one of them up and down years to where it had its good parts, but then there was a few parts that weren't so good, but ended on a good note. So
yeah. So what's been different about this year?
Honestly, I can't really figure it out other than I went to Denver and Fort Worth, and I was doing everything I knew possible to get prepared and feel confident riding, aside from getting on a lot of practice bulls. Like in the earlier days, like 18, 19, and then back home in Australia, like I got on a lot of practice bulls, but kind of 20, 21, 22, I wasn't getting on a whole lot of practice bulls, and I didn't do any good at Denver, any good at Fort Worth. I made it back to the semifinals in San Antonio purely off of the previous year's world standings. I'd fallen off like 13 bulls in a row. And at that point, I didn't know what to do, and we were in San Antonio at the Extreme Bulls, and I didn't do any good there, and JB was there, and I said, "What are you doing the rest of this week?" He said, "Nothing, just be back at the house until I come back down here." I said, "Well, I'm coming to the house, and I'm going to get on bulls every day, and I'm going to figure this shit out because I've had enough."
And I'm sure he was so excited as he gets to buck bulls.
Yeah.
And be around it.
He was like, "Come on, we'll do it." And I don't know what it was, but the years before, every now and again, I'd take my helmet off and I'd wear my hat. And I always liked it because I could see a lot clearer. If I was in a bad spot, I could see where I had to be better and I could get there. Well, at this point, I mean, I hadn't stayed on anything, so I'm like, screw the helmet. I ain't wearing it. And I'm going to get on a shitload of practice bulls. And I got on, I think, like 9 or 10 bulls that week before I went back to San Antonio for the semifinals. And I wore my hat. And I know getting on the practice bulls helped a lot. And I've been doing it ever since the rest of this year. I've been getting on practice as much as I could when I wasn't rodeoing. And I think the hat helped a little bit, but then definitely being around JB, and I've always looked up to the older guys like the Troy Dunns, the JB Mooney, Tough Hedeman, like that older generation. I've always thought they were tough cowboys, and that was their mentality. And same with like my dad and my uncle back home, they rode bulls. They were rough, tough cowboys, and that was their mentality, and that's how they went about riding. And I think being around JB and being around that mentality all the time, I think it rubbed off, and it kind of reminded me of that. And I think that has been kind of this year that's really helped me, is having that mentality and being around it all the time more often. I think that's just become my mentality, and I think that's helped a lot.
I've talked about this like on a couple of different podcasts, but like I was talking to Marcus Luttrell, and I was the Navy SEAL.
Yep.
He was like lone survivor. Mark Wahlberg played him in a movie. And I was telling him about the knocker balls. You know those big balloons that guys will get in and go out there with a fighting bull?
Yeah.
Well, when you watch them on the internet, all that you see is like the person's ankles. So we bought some for the beaches, and Cody Webster brought a fighting cow, like a sure enough fighting bull, you know?
Yeah.
And, we got these knocker balls in, and they were half the size. And it came up above the guy's knees. And so we blow them up, put them on these guys, and we're about to film, and I'm explaining this to Marcus, and I was like, and we thought, well, we'll do it anyway. And he stopped me, and he goes, whoa, that right there. Don't ever let go of that.
Yeah.
And it was crazy to me that this Navy SEAL recognized it's this point that I think every cowboy, has to have in them whenever they're at least getting on rough stock or doing anything Western at least. It's like you get faced with this challenge. Riding bulls is one of them, where it's like you do throw out, to a certain extent, you throw out, the safety vest, for lack of better terms, like you're getting on a bull, and it's dangerous, and you could lose your life, you know? And now, where do you draw the line? Like, should a guy get on a bull with no vest? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Should a guy get on a bronc with no vest? I think getting on a bull without a helmet is kind of in the same ballpark as getting on a bronc with no vest.
Yeah.
And there's just, Joe Rogan was asking me about it. He was like, is there a stereotype? Is there a difference? And I said, yes. I said, anybody that comes to my house and wants to learn how to ride bulls, you're going to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
But like, if JB or Kai showed up at my house and wanted to get on, like, they don't have to, I'm not going to make them wear a helmet and call it grandfathered in or whatever, but there's just a certain mentality. There's something cowboy about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating that young people start riding bulls without a helmet. I'm really not. But it's kind of like smoking that cigarette. I don't think people should smoke cigarettes. But when JB does it, it looks pretty dang cool, Like, yeah. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to go smoke one, but I can appreciate JB smoking a cigarette, riding a bull in a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And I've done, with broncs, I would take my vest off occasionally.
Yeah.
And it just, as you leave the chute, it's almost like burning the boats. You throw, you're going to get out, you're going to jump out of an airplane without the parachute, and you better do it right. And it makes you kind of like, hey, I don't have a safety net. That's what I meant a while ago. Not a vest, a safety net. You throw the safety net out, and it's do or die.
Yeah.
And there's something about that affects your try.
Yeah.
Now, the downside is, if you one of the reasons why I like new guys coming here, if they get on bulls, like, I make them wear helmets, because sometimes they just don't know how to try yet.
Yeah.
And like the first couple of times they get on a bull, their adrenaline's through the roof and they can't help it. They're trying their ass off. But about that 10th, 11th, 12th time, we're practicing on a Tuesday afternoon. It's hot. It's 2:00. They're tired. There's no music. Sometimes they'll realize what it means to not show up mentally, and they're just getting on for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And those are the days where, now you're working a hang up. They'll get jerked down. And so that's one of the reasons, like, I feel like you as a professional, like, you're to the point in your bull riding, like, what it's like. You know where you got to go mentally to perform your best.
Yeah.
And that doesn't guarantee safety, because it is bull riding, but damn, it eliminates a lot of that risk.
Yeah.
When a guy's going to try his ass off, it eliminates so much of the risk.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I don't think people understand, that when you and JB give your 100%, like it's different than Joe Blow bull rider getting on in a backyard bull riding, and he's doing it just so people think he's a bull rider.
Yeah.
That's much different.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny you say that. I think that's what did help me this year. Like, I took the hat off. I was hanging around JB. Like, it got to the point where I gave a shit, but at the same token, I didn't give a shit. Like, I gave a shit that I wanted to win, and I was going to do what I had to do to win. But other than that, I didn't give a shit what happened.
Yeah.
And that tough cowboy mentality. If you're going to wear a hat, you're going to try your ass off.
Yep.
And if you get hurt, that's part of it.
Yep.
Suck it up. And at the same time, you give a shit and you want to win. But other than that, you don't give a shit what happens. You're just going to try your ass off and do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It wakes you up a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I don't know, you see so many guys, like, they do. I mean, them helmets, you know, you clack the top of their head or one of them horns hit the face mask or, you know, heaven forbid they get stepped on. And it's just like, man, I'm glad I was wearing that. And it's just like, yes, absolutely. You may have done a little different. It may have worked out differently had you not. You probably would have changed some things, and it would have changed the way you ride bulls, you know. Again, I'm not advocating it. I'm really not. And I told Joe Rogan on the podcast, I was like, out of 10, you might see 2 guys, you know, not wearing helmets. And he pulled up Houston, and I was like, and it was a video of JB, and you were on the back of the Houston. I was like, Kai Hamilton's one that doesn't, you know, right now either. And that's your 2 out of 10 for today's pick. Yeah. And anyways, it's kind of a double standard, I guess. Like I said, I love watching you and JB do it, but again, any bull rider who comes here, if they're new to it, hey man, you got to wear this.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
How do you feel going into? You've been on a few practice bulls. That's what is it? November. Got about 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks and 2 days before the first perf. What are your plans between now and the NFR?
Just keep getting on a lot of practice bulls. Like going to an Extreme Bulls this weekend, and then there's another bull riding next Thursday in Cisco I'll go do. And then other than that, I'll just be getting on a lot of practice bulls. I think at the start of the year, I know when I was getting on a lot of bulls and I went to Houston, everything was just like second nature. I didn't think about nothing. It was just everything was working. And I knew what that felt like, and I know what it feels like. So I'm just recreating that now. I'm getting on bulls so that when I show up there first round, everything's just clicking. It's like second nature. So
yeah,
yep.
Sitting second. What are your future plans as far as like bull riding's concerned? Or are you just kind of taking it 1 year at a time?
Pretty much just taking it 1 year at a time. I have had thoughts about going to the PBR and stuff like that, and I think I will at some point. I just, like I said, goals I've figured out how to set goals and how to set goals that obtainable for me. So I mean, at the moment, I've got goals and stuff in the PRCA, and I want to get them achieved and then move on to my other ones. So.
You and Stetson got some bulls?
Yeah, we bought some bulls off JV earlier this winter when it was time to start heading back towards Utah and stuff. We didn't have any bulls out there. And I said, let's get some bulls so I can keep practicing. So.
Oh, okay, so they're practice bulls.
Yeah, well, they are practice bulls, but they've downed both of us.
Really?
A little bit.
So they're getting a little ranker then.
Yeah, we actually sold 2 of them to Will O'Connell this summer. We said they're good bulls, and I mean we'll practice on them, but they are getting good. He said, we said to him, take them if they work out, you can buy them. If not, just bring them back and we'll practice on them. But they've been working out for him, so he bought them. Yeah. Dang,
that's kind of funny. Like, yeah, they're practice bulls, but they're practice bulls for number 1 and 2 in the world. So, That's an interesting concept for a practice bull, because
Yeah.
when you said that, I thought, oh, they must, kind of jump kick, turn back a little bit, and then it's like, no, it's number 1 and 2. Yeah, so now they're going down the road.
Yeah. We got a couple of nicer ones there too to boost our confidence back up.
So you're talking about getting on all those bulls, like Stetson's not though, right?
No, like he's a different cat. Like he said to me during the winter, like, I was starting to think like you might have been getting on too many practice bulls, and I'm like, I ain't changing nothing. I'm riding everything. I'm getting on these practice bulls. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, like he rides broncs too. So I'm getting on the same amount as bulls as he is pretty much, but then he's getting on all these broncs before his bulls. And I know how much riding a saddle horse helps my bull riding too, having something moving underneath you all the time on a daily basis. I'm like, well, if he's pretty much getting on twice as many head as I am.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I'm going to practice.
That's a good point.
So,
and bronc riding, like, you can sit on some of them, but you will not win a check.
Yeah.
You have to move your feet. Not only do you have to move your feet, but you have to be in rhythm and time with them. You're moving your feet fast. Like, it might be like the second best thing you can do
for your bull riding.
For your bull riding outside of riding bulls.
Yeah.
Bareback riding, I don't know. Who knows about bareback riding? Them guys are a different breed. What about the gym? Does Stetson or yourself ever go to the gym?
Little bits. I used to be really big on it and do it a lot, but I think I kind of got sour on it. But now it's just little stuff. Like I'll do maybe like 3 workouts a week, and it's just kind of all body weight stuff. I don't like lifting weights and stuff like that, but I know like you got to have a strong core and a strong back, and so I mean I do little stuff to work on that, and then shoot, I know getting on bulls, that's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're working out the exact muscles you're going to use,
right? And
you're getting your timing down and stuff. So I do a little of gym stuff, and so does Stetson. So
yeah, we got a gym back here, and Jacobs Crawley made a comment to me. It was the year he won the world in 2015. He just talked about quality of life, as far as the gym was concerned. Like, yes, rodeo, it's obviously physically demanding. And, because I've always enjoyed growing up. I didn't rodeo a lot as a kid, but I loved football, and so I've always been in the gym a little. And, but, rodeoing, it's pretty obvious. The best thing for bull riding is getting on bulls.
Yeah.
And you just cannot replace practice bulls with the gym. And I think that's where guys mess up. It's not that going to the gym is bad. I mean, it can be if you're getting too big.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is when guys try to replace bulls with the gym. Yeah. I don't think that's something that can be done.
Yeah.
I have had one guy here. He was just so small at the time, skinny, and it was actually, it wasn't bull riding, but I was like, I think you might be good to gain 10 pounds of muscle to keep from having injuries.
Yeah.
You got to get on to get better, but But I mean, he was weighing like 140, maybe a little less. Even.
Yeah.
And the horse riding, that can be, and bareback riding specifically, that can be, you get jerked around by some of them big rascals.
Yeah, for sure.
So we got him up to like 153, 155, and he was still lean and mean. But again, anyhow, yeah, JB has always been one that's gotten on a lot of bulls.
Yeah.
And had that same mentality. But that's a good point about Stetson with having gotten on so many broncs throughout and not just any broncs. Like, he's getting on the best in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, that's a real cool story, man. That's an interesting, like, I knew you would just falling in with JB, with Stetson, getting over here and going to NFRs your second year. Like, I've always known you had to have one of those winning Australian mindsets that all them guys have.
Yeah.
We usually wrap these things up with just like a motivational quote that has meant something to you. Anything like a one-liner or something that's stuck with you through the years.
I think to me it's been, if you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, coming from Australia over to here, like, it could have been easy to go home and call it quits and go back to working for a living, but I got something I want to do, and I know if I want it bad enough, I'll figure out a way to get it.
Do you have something on the side that you're doing now? I mean, like, I don't think you should, but like,
I just bought a place, so I mean, other than that, I mean, now I need to figure out something to do with my money so that when I do finish riding bulls, I don't have to work for someone else again.
right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a good problem to have.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's cool, your mindset and everything. So thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for, you guys go listen to, or go follow Kai, Instagram, all the things, and watch out for him this year at the NFR. And thanks for coming on, old son.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We're on to the next one. Pow, pow.